Hello, and welcome back to another episode of General Conference Conversations, the podcast where we have conversations about General Conference. I'm your host, Kaylin, and today we are talking about Bishop Waddell's talk, More Than a Hero. Now, this is crazy, but this is the second to last talk in the Sunday morning session, which means next week we will be into the Sunday afternoon session and almost done, which I guess makes sense because it's March now. So we have just less than a month until next conference, which is also insane. So anyway, as always, I encourage you to listen to or watch or read this talk before you come listen to me talk about it, so you can get your own inspirations and promptings and all of that. And then hopefully I can add something or ask a question. So called More Than a Hero, and Bishop Waddell starts by telling the story of the rescuers who went for the Martin and Willie handcart companies when they were stranded on the plains. And he talks specifically about Ephraim Hanks, who went out. He was on a trip. He had a dream about the handcart companies being in danger. So he went back to Salt Lake and heard that it was true, and they were looking for more volunteers to go out with the rescue team. And he went out on his own, and he rode, and he went faster than everybody else. Got there first, and helped to, bless the sick and things like that. And that to those in those handcart companies, Ephraim Hanks was their hero, was forever their hero. And that similar to that, a lot of the events that impact our lives, and even sometimes like the course of history, the lives of the entire world, are the result of decisions and achievements of individual men and women, whether that's artists or scientists or business leaders or politicians, and they're often lauded as heroes. And there's monuments and memorials built, right? There are holidays named after them, things like that. He says when he was young, his first heroes were athletes. And he says as a child, hero worship, quote unquote, can be fun and innocent, and you dress up as your favorite superhero for Halloween, and we admire amazing people. But although it's good to admire people, right, and to look to characteristics that we want to emulate, if taken too far, it can lead to idolatry, basically. And so our hero worship, quote unquote, of politicians or bloggers or athletes or musicians can, if our worship of them kind of supersedes our worship of God and our following of his commandments, it can be really bad, right? He talks about the children of Israel. He says, for the children of Israel, the challenge was not the gold that they brought with them on their journey to the promised land, but rather what they allowed the gold to become, an idol, which then became the object of their worship, turned their attention away from Jehovah, who had parted the Red Sea and delivered them from bondage. Their focus on the calf impacted their ability to worship the true God. I remember when I was growing up, my dad always talked about this. He's like, money is not evil, it's the love of money that's evil. It's greed. Money is just a tool that we use to function in society, right? We have to have money to live, to get food, to have somewhere to sleep, to have water, to just go about our lives, right? Like, we need to have money. But when money becomes the most important thing in your life, more important than your family or your friends or God or anything like that, right? It muddies the waters, and then you can end up making bad decisions because you just want more and more and more, right? And that has stuck with me my whole life. My dad had dreams. Like, he wanted to own he wanted to franchise his own business. Like, he opened his own business. He wanted to do that. But it was never to get wealthy. I mean, that would be a good perk, right? But it wasn't like, I want to do this so that I'm a millionaire. And he worked hard for everything that he had. And so I always, thought, like, obviously money is good. Money is necessary. It's a necessary evil kind of a thing, right? But if that's all we're trying to do, if it's all we're working towards, wow, I just had inspiration right there. Okay, I'll think about that later. I'll ponder on this a little bit more, right? But that's all we're working towards, right? Then that becomes an idol. And I was gonna say something else about this. And it's the same thing with other things and other people, right? Like, it's not bad to watch YouTube videos. It's not bad to watch Marvel movies. It's not bad to follow particular politicians or love an artist's work. Or, like I said earlier, to look at somebody's characteristics and think, man, I want to be like that person because they're pretty cool. But when we put them above God, we start to worship them, right? We become part of their quote-unquote religion, right? That becomes our belief system. Everything that they say is gospel. Everything that we do is to be like them, or to get this thing, or to have more money, right? The same thing, the same way. And so, the gold is not what was bad. It's that they allowed it to become something that superseded everything else. So he goes on to talk about that Christ is the hero, the atonement, and he defended the Father's plan. He was also played the most crucial role in the plan, and he did everything that is essential for our journey through mortality. And in our world, it can be very tempting to turn to people in the world, right? And he says this, he's like, it might be fine for a temporary diversion, but we need to be watchful that it doesn't become our golden calf. I think that's the thing too. I was just saying this, right? Like, it's okay to buy clothes that someone sponsors because you like the clothes that they wear, or it's okay to take someone's advice about makeup, or it's okay that you change your mind on a political issue because someone on YouTube said something and you're like, oh, they're making a good point, right? We are influenced by people. We're influenced by the people around us all the time. But when we start to take their opinion and things like that as gospel, as the end-all be-all, then it can get really dicey really quickly. And he uses, as another example, Daniel, or in the book of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that they were not going, they were not going to worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar wanted them to. And he has this quote, He says, as the Apostle Paul taught, there be gods many, and I may add heroes many, to whom we are invited to bow down, to worship, and to embrace. But just as Daniel's 3 friends knew, there is only one who is guaranteed to deliver, because he already has, and he always will. For us, on our journey back to the presence of God, to our promised land, it's not the politician, the musician, the athlete, or the blogger that is the issue, but rather choosing to allow them to become the primary objects of our attention and focus in place of our Savior and Redeemer. So just like to reiterate, right? It's not the blogger that's the problem. It's not the athlete or the politician, the artist that's the problem. It's not liking them that's the problem. It's letting them become more important than anything else. When they become more important than God, when they become more important than our friends and our family and things like that, then that's a problem. I was teaching the youth Sunday school at one point, a couple years ago. Our youth are so smart. Oh my gosh, they blew me away. I think every single time I gave them a lesson. There was one day we were talking about idolatry, and or maybe I think it was idolatry. It was something along those lines, right? It was like, what are things that we put above God in the world? And of course they came up with like our cell phones and TV. And one of the girls raised their hand. She was younger, and she goes, ourselves. And I was like, blew my mind. I had to like take a step back and was like, oh, you are very right. That is called pride. Right? Like, that's also a thing, right? Like, we put ourselves above God and above our family and all of this stuff, and it can get really murky really quickly. So that's my question, and it's going to be a deep question, maybe a call-out question, but are there things or people in your life who you might give more attention to than Jesus Christ? I guarantee you there's something, right? There's something that we spend more time on than we probably should be. And that's normal. It's human, right? We're gonna make mistakes. We're trying to figure this out. We're trying to figure out the balancing act of like being in the world and having to use money, right? But also not letting it consume our every thought. So yeah, think about that. Are there things or people in your life that you might give more attention to than Jesus Christ? So, and of course, Bishop Waddell ends with his testimony that, we have a world full of heroes with monuments and museums and memorials dedicated to them, but there is one who stands above the rest. That's Jesus Christ. He is our Savior. He is our hero. And not just our hero, but the hero of all mankind. So, on that note, that's all I've got for you today. Be sure to check out the footnotes for this one. They're really good. There's quite a few of them if you want some, more talks to look at, scriptures, things like that. So, thank you so much for listening and or watching. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook, General Conference Conversations, and on YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts. You can subscribe or follow. And of course, I love to hear from you, messages and emails and comments and reviews, all that stuff. So I will talk to you all next time.